I feel like my whole life is you can't make this this up. I'm Mamadou Baldé, and you can't make this up.
Hello, and welcome to the You Can't Make This Up podcast. This is the podcast where we laugh at ourselves as leaders. We celebrate our failures. We make fun of each other. We have a good time. But more importantly, we take those failures and we learn from them. We celebrate them as moments in our career that helped us get to where we are today. And we unpack those to really, truly understand how did it help us in our leadership journey? What did we learn from it, and how did we evolve as leaders? And so hopefully today you're going to have some fun listening to this podcast. You're going to hear some great stories, but more importantly, you're going to walk away from this, listen to understand how you can be a better leader. And so, Josh, they said that this podcast would never last. Here we are to our second episode, so we've outlasted expectations here. And so I'm going to pass it off to you and let you introduce our guest.
Okay, so I'm proud to introduce my friend and guest, Mr. Mamadou Baldé. Mamadou is a graduate of Liberty University School of Law, where he earned his JD and his Bachelor of Science in Finance. He's also an active member in the Pittsburgh community. He serves on multiple boards, and most recently, Mamadou, you made the Pittsburgh Power 100 this year. So congratulations and welcome to the podcast.
Thank you guys for having me. Very excited to be here.
So to start off, Mamadou, I want to our listeners to learn a little bit about your story, your kind of you can't make this shit up journey that you've been on. If you can give us a little background.
Yeah, definitely. I feel like my whole life is you can't make this up. So Mamadou Baldé obviously isn't an American name. So I was born in West Africa, small country on the West Coast called Guinea. It's like, don't quote me on this, but I remember reading at some point it was like one of the least traveled countries in the world, right? So it's close to like Sierra Leone, Ivory Coast, but like it's just this little country. So moved to the U.S. when I was about 5-ish. Family came here. My dad worked for a subsidiary and affiliate of Alcoa. So for all you geography and whatever buffs out there, Guinea had at that time the largest reserve of bauxite, which is the mineral used to make aluminum. Okay. And so Alcoa, aluminum. Anyway, moved here and –
You speak English at this time?
I had to learn English.
Okay.
I learned English in I was 5. I remember learning in 3 months. It was crazy.
Was it like watching movies?
It was kind of, I watched a lot of Sesame Street and Hooked on Phonics worked for me.
You sounded like Elmo for a while.
Exactly.
Okay.
And Bert and all those guys. But it was still the land. My first language was, we have a tribal language and then French and then had to learn English as well. So, but it's funny because having, foreign parents, remember when I was kindergarten, and my mom's a very proud West African woman, and she sends me to school in the traditional African garb. Yeah. Everyone else is in shorts, and I'm like, why can't I just wear it? So, but so grew up in Moon, graduated from Moon, went to the University of Akron. Went to Liberty finished undergrad, stayed for law school, came back to Pittsburgh, practiced law for a couple years, went into real estate brokerage, went into development with affordable housing development with Action Housing, bought a business, millwork, wood manufacturing business, and then did development as well, and then found myself at CBRE in 22.
Diverse
background. It's funny though because when I look back from practicing law, from being a broker, from being a developer to running a business, it all works to help me run the CBRE office now. It's not planned, completely fortuitous, but it all kind of works out. So yeah.
Talked a little bit about the entrepreneur part of that, right? And how that helped you where you are, right? Because at CBRE, I wouldn't say that's necessarily entrepreneurship, like,
Yeah.
but it had to help you in some way,
Absolutely.
shape, or form. So maybe talk about that.
Yeah, no, you're right. I mean, I view it as entrepreneurship, right? Like, I really look at the Pittsburgh region that I run as like my business, right?
Yeah.
So I'm kind of running it as I would my own business, which it is, right? I mean, I'm
And
responsible
you think
for
that
the P&L.
mindset that you took from Millwork helped you
100%.
kind of see it that way?
I feel like, again, I said a lot of the work and kind of careers I had before really built up to help me, be where I'm at. But I think that I've always had an entrepreneurial mindset, even as an employee, which probably made me a terrible employee.
Yeah.
But like, really, just I think it's accountability, it's responsibility, it's just pride in your work and the things you're putting out to people, and most importantly, it's customer and client satisfaction. Right? I think that's the overarching theme that I try to live and really infuse in our company. And a lot of the brokers who are also entrepreneurial people, a lot of them feel the same way. So it's we're all working towards the same goal.
Yeah, that makes sense.
That's awesome. So when you think about your career, think about your leadership journey, I'm sure you've had moments where you've just scratched your head and said, what the heck just happened, right?
Yeah,
And so what are some of those stories?
Man. So I'll start with the very beginning of my career at CBRE, right? So I get the job. I'm excited. It's like I started January 2nd, I think, whatever, like the first day of the new year was. So I go in there. I'm excited. I'm in like
Can
a
you
suit.
what year? Where
This is
about are we at?
2022.
Okay.
So
all
it's
right.
like the height of like everything, right?
Okay. Yeah, we're COVID.
Exactly,
everything's going on.
exactly.
Okay.
So I get in there and I'm excited, and I'm like, I got a suit and a tie on. I'm ready to go. I get in there and I'm like, I'm like coughing. I'm like, it's wintertime, like whatever. So get in there. I'm going around my day. I'm doing all my training, and I'm like coughing, and my eyes are starting to like swell up. And our ops person at the time was like, "Are you okay?" I'm like, "Yeah, I just get a little cough." And so I go home that day, and I'm like, I like pass out. I'm like, this is my first day as well, new job, new everything, right? I go home and I'm like, I'm so beaten. My wife, Kelsey, she's like, well, we should go get like a COVID test. So we do like that home thing. It doesn't like lead up to like positive. It's just like positive. Like it's like you have
no
COVID.
doubt.
Exactly. So, first day was like that. Then that was my first day in the office. I had to call all my bosses like, hey guys, I was in the office with COVID.
Oh jeez.
Just spread it around day one. But so I had to work from home. But I guess what I learned there was, our senior or executive managing director, Chris Zubel, he gave me advice. He's like, look, you're an ambitious guy. We love that about you, but like, don't try to boil the ocean. I'm like, no way, man. Like, hold my beer, watch this. So I'm like doing all this stuff, and like COVID felt like it was God saying like, hey man, like you should really heed that advice. So
if you weren't gonna listen,
exactly, so I guess I got smitten to really listen. But I think that's a hard balance, right? For anyone that's entrepreneurial, is like you have to balance your drive and your ambition with like reality, right? I mean, and for me, that balance is always difficult for me because in my mind, there's no limits, right? I just told you guys about my history, and it's like there's no reason for me to be where I'm at, right? And so having that mindset like really allowed me to kind of, I guess, succeed to where I'm at now. But especially in this role, I've learned that one, there's a different dynamic now with family, right? I've got 2 boys, and we have a daughter coming in June, and my wife, who's also
Congratulations.
Thank you. So there's just it's not just me anymore, kind of just running wild and doing all sorts of stuff. So patience in the right scenarios makes sense.
I can relate to that.
Yeah.
I can relate to that before family, before being married, before kids.
Yeah.
The wild side of entrepreneurship and taking risks.
Absolutely.
Like anything was on the table, right? And I could roll the dice a lot more on some of the things I was doing. And then as families started to come in, the calculus changed. And for an entrepreneur, that's a tough thing to realize, but it is important, and it does teach patience and risk management a little bit more.
I mean, like you said, I mean, for me, like, I remember thinking, even when I was younger, I was like, I'm going to take as many risks as I can before I get married. And, like, Kelsey and I got married in 2019. So like, switching careers, trying this, buying this, business, running it with zero experience, mind you.
Yeah.
Like it was just like in that industry, it was all risks. And then we got to a point where I was like, okay, like
I think we're crazy.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we're like, we got to figure this out.
Yeah, we tend to marry people that are the yin to our yang, right? They balance us.
Right,
and
right.
so I can tell you that my wife's risk gland is much more hypersensitive than mine.
Sure.
And I'm sure you've probably seen that as well. Once you get married, you have that family. You need to take strategic risks.
Exactly.
But you've got people to protect.
Yeah, and that's, my wife and I are opposites, right? She owns a business that does great work with women suffering from hair loss, and
it's a power couple going on, man.
She's more the power. She's phenomenal. Her business is great, helps a lot of people. So she actually, when we met, that's when she bought her business, because when we first started dating, she's like, I'm like, do it, buy it,
let's go.
She's like, no, I don't know, but she did it. It's been a blessing, and she loves it. So, but yeah, risks calculated now. Back then, it was kind of just a little more free.
So you get over COVID, and your rest of your leadership journey smooth sailing.
Smooth sailing, no issues. Perfect. People love me.
It's been good.
Awesome.
And the podcast, right? No, I mean, it's been such a phenomenal learning experience. Like I'm a learner, right? And I just enjoy learning new things. So for me, it's been great. Even like as any leader experiences, there's highs and there's lows, there's ups and there's downs, right? So, for me, it's really trying to learn from best practices from other people. I think CBRE, we do, especially in the Midwest, a lot of idea sharing, a lot of, kind of thought leadership, which turns into ideas. And so I'm always calling people, right? It's funny, I get people laugh at me sometimes because I'll still just pick up the phone and call people where people are sending emails and Teams, and I'm just hey man, can you help me out with this? I got this question. But there's been a couple funny can't make this up moments. I mean, one. Okay,
so you come into CBRE, right?
Yeah,
like you're I'm guessing, I don't know, previous style, and you come in, you're a new person. It's not like you were with CBRE and got promoted into this role, right? Yep. You're coming from the outside in with your own ideas of and strategy and what you want to implement. Like, just kind of tell us how
that's actually a great point, Josh. I mean, one, we were dealing with COVID, so that's like everyone was kind of trying to figure that point out. So,
then you get COVID day one,
and I got COVID day one, so still trying to figure it out. But it was interesting to me because the mindset I had was like, everyone's in the same boat here. COVID has never happened. We've never been in this like kind of world before, so we're all trying to figure this out. No one knows what's going to happen with real estate. Although at that point, I think we were very high, and then kind of the capital markets kind of went silent. So it was new. I was at a competitor before when I was a broker, so I had no idea about CBRE or the CBRE way. And then I came into an office where I knew some people just from the industry and doing deals and things like that, but really wasn't aware of the culture or anything like that. So I came in with a clean slate, essentially. My predecessor was there to kind of coach me. Unfortunately, he passed away 4 months into my tenure there, and he was supposed to be like a mentor to me. So that kind of
that's
accelerated.
That's the can't make your up moment almost right
exactly.
there.
It was really
Here
sad.
you are. You're on your own now.
It was really sad first and foremost.
Yeah.
But second, him and I would talk every day, right? I'd call him and say, "Hey, Jeffrey, like this is what is this?" And he was very much like, he was such a great manager of the business, and he was such a great coach that it was just easy for us to like get along and talk about stuff, and he coached me up.
So he's the one that recruited you as well, right?
Yeah, so he's the one that kind of led my recruiting process.
He's a Pittsburgh legend.
He is a Pittsburgh legend. Most of the big real estate transaction happened in Pittsburgh. Jeffrey Ackerman was probably part of it. So God rest his soul, and we miss him dearly. So so then when he passed away, it was kind of like figure it out, and so I think at that point it was, I wouldn't say like challenging, but I felt like urgency, right? I had to like figure stuff out. But you know what that allowed me to do? That allowed me to expand into the CBRE machine, to like talk to different people and learn different things from different people and really think about how I'm going to run the business in a new way, because I feel like the business has changed since then, right? I mean, we're dealing with all sorts of issues. We're still recruiting.
COVID affected real estate.
Yeah, shocker, right? Shocker. But it's, and then my vision is different than previous leaders' vision as well. So
Right.
I think it was more of, earning trust very quickly and building trust with, everyone in the office at that point, right?
Was that and everyone, right?
Everyone, yeah.
Everyone bought in.
Everyone bought in? No. It's No, I mean, look, change is hard for anybody, but what I realized too is that I think Simon Sinek said this at some point, but he said someone said it's not change that's hard, it's the pace of change that makes it more difficult, right? Mm-hmm. Change is difficult. It's a pace of change that makes it more difficult. So for us, it was like, I'm new, COVID's new, we moved offices, the kind of the model, how we were running the business changed a little bit. And it was just like all that happened at once, right? And so it was kind of, there was some trepidation on some people's parts, and then you have people that are going to buy in, and then you have people that don't buy in. So having to deal with that, and again, just earning trust and trying to move the business forward.
So, how do you handle? I would say it's a little easier to lead the ones that are buying in, right? How do you lead or depart with the people that aren't buying in?
Yeah. That's a good
Mumo.
That's a good question. That's
F7
a good question.
Mumo.
F7 Mumo. Look, I mean, there's one instance that sticks out to me, kind of another moment, but there was a moment where this was very early in my tenure. I want to say it was the first year, maybe 6 months in. And, we're still trying to figure things out. I'm trying to figure out everyone's business, right? And making changes appropriate to like how to the CBRE guidelines, right? So some things were different than had been done before. So I remember, for lack of better terms, there was like a mutiny of sorts in the office, a coup, if you will. And so the coup was like, we had a team that wasn't excited about the changes I was making, right? Which is fine, right? Like, you're not gonna be excited. That's an opportunity for us to talk and like sit down and understand each other. But that wasn't really the approach I was taking. The approach I was taking was really going to all my senior brokers and leaders in the office and like, articulating the frustration and saying, "Hey, we don't like what Mamadou's doing. We got to get him out of here, right?" Like, So I'm like, really? Is this how it works here?
Damn. COVID day one, mutiny first month.
Yeah,
okay,
man. It was literally.
And your mentor,
and then Jeffrey passed.
Man,
but it was a lot, and I
man.
think at the time I didn't realize it. But when you take the opportunity to reflect, which I've never really done before, and so end of the year I typically kind of look back both at my business plan, how that went, personal and business, and look at like what happened, how it happened, and it wasn't until because I was trying to boil the ocean, if you remember. Like I had all these like
the advice against.
Exactly. So I had all these like, great like grandiose like plans, and I look back and I'm like, this is like a 3 to 5 year plan.
Yeah.
This is like a 4 year thing. This is a 5 year, 7 year thing. So really allowed me to sit back and and then I also realized like, look, I was never one to take breaks or go on vacations, but I think that year was the first year where I'm like, okay, like I have to like step away from this for a while. And it's funny because my our senior managing director who sits in Columbus, Mike Capella, is always like, he's like, yeah, man, you got to like you need to like relax. Like you just got to like slow down, man. And I'm like, no, I'm fine. But again, advice that I don't heed. So
right.
So how did the mutiny manifest itself, and how was it resolved?
The mutiny resolved itself kind of like how a lot of things in business resolve, like just like on its own, the invisible hand, I guess, like did its work, right? So I think this is actually a reassuring moment for me, right? So this team went to all the senior leaders, vocalized their frustrations, and one by one, each leader, each like of our senior came to me like, hey, just so you know, like blah, blah, blah is doing blah, 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 and I just want to give you a heads up. And so after that, I was kind of shocked at the first one. Then by the fifth one, and I'm just like, but it was great because they were like, gave me advice also, and that was another humbling moment where like, hey, you're the leader, but in true servant leadership, like you're really working for the folks in your office, and so I just felt grateful that there was that trust that they felt they could come to me, and then also wanted me to succeed, and that they gave me that advice, right? And I thought that was special. I thought it was a good early moment, early win for me. But what happened with I guess they're not mutants, huh?
No.
Let's do them.
What do we call them?
Yeah, I don't know what to call them, but
Mutineers?
Yeah, exactly. So they, it just wasn't a good fit, and that's kind of what I had realized, and so, parted ways, and no hard feelings, and just it's not going to be a fit for it. My style is not a fit for everyone. Everyone's not a fit for my style, so. Just parted ways and, continued to excel. So
I think that's a great lesson learned too, right? I mean, we do as servant leaders want to have everyone buy in, but ultimately not everyone is going to buy in.
Absolutely.
Right? And I think that's, like you said, for some people, right, it's nothing against the leader or the person there. It's just some things don't fit. Right?
Exactly.
And then you adjust accordingly. So.
Yeah.
But did your leadership style evolve or change post that experience? How did that help make you a better leader?
Yeah, I think it's to what Josh said. I mean, I think when you take over an organization, I realize that there's going to be some attrition, right? There's always attrition for one reason or another, right? The change may be a good opportunity for someone that was going to leave or do something different and would just do that, right? And, we even had that. We had someone that wanted to start their own business, fully support him. He's one of my best friends to this day, right? And it was all love. And there's other people that, are just don't want to be a part of the organization. There's either doubt as to, leadership or style or whatever. And look, I was 36 at the time, or 30. I was 35 at the time. So I'm a young leader in an office of very experienced professionals, right?
Yeah, right.
And so earning that trust was twice as hard, right? I had left the industry, right? I'm coming back. I'd continue to do deals, which I don't know if a lot of people knew that or not, but it was kind of like all these things working against me. So really earning trust, building relationships, controlling what you can control, and not taking everything too personally or seriously, I think are the biggest lessons that I learned from
tough one,
that.
the last one.
Absolutely. It's that's a evolution, right? I mean, that's from a human perspective and from a leadership perspective. So
I also think it's hard, people say, it's not personal, it's business, but I don't know that I necessarily believe that, right? I mean, we're humans, right?
Exactly.
I mean, I don't know that that's the right, I don't necessarily like that. And because sometimes and you need to separate sometimes, but also we're humans, and some things, are the line is blurred a little bit between professional and personal. I love sports. I love sports analogies. I know you played sports in high school and in college. What are some, and when I think about this change in leadership, you see it a lot of times in, let's just say, head coaches coming into new. Can you draw maybe some comparisons in your sporting, your background with sports, and how some of that changeover that we just talked about happens, right? When a new coach comes in, right? Yeah. Everybody, I mean, most of the time you're going to see some of that cultural stuff change, and maybe talk about that a little bit.
Oh, exactly. That's probably one of the, and look, I think, playing football and growing up kind of in that like mindset has really, impacted me so much, because my life I model after that, like my drive, my goal setting, my teamwork, like everything. That's like football, right? Team sports. And I look at the brokerage business as a bunch of little teams, right? We have a retail team, an industrial team, an office team, a capital markets team. And same with football. You have linebackers, you have cornerbacks, you got, D linemen, right? So, and then you have a head coach, and then you have assistant coaches, right? So our leadership team is the coaches, and our position groups are our teams. And so, and it's competition too, right? Like you have a lot of linebackers vying for 3 or 4 positions based on whatever type of defense you run, right? We have 4 retail teams that are all vying to be the best retail team, not only in the office but in the market, right? So that like internal competition, but also camaraderie, I think is one of the other big parallels. But for me, it's like goal setting. I think when we start the year, we do business planning. And for me, that's really a time of goal setting. It's time to reflect on the past year and how it finished, and a time to really set goals to really plan out how you want to get to where you want to get to. And so that even is parallel to sports.
I love trying to match some of my employees up with let's just say the NFL, right? And different players like your wide receivers or your prima donnas or whoever. Like I know that person in my company. Like
exactly.
But that's the one going for the home run, right?
Yep.
And you got your blocking and tackling, and you got your quarterback, and you have your coaches. Like I think there's a lot of good parallels in sports. And I also think from a recruiting perspective, in what I do, we always look for, depending on the position, for athletes. People that have been part of a team in high school and college. Like I would say way more than if you're at least in some of the entry level positions when you're coming out, way more than grades or anything else. I think that experience that you get in sports and leadership and team play and all of those things is extremely important.
One of my favorite interview questions of all time, and I use this for every single interview I do, is to ask the person, what is the most significant goal you've set that you've achieved in your life?
Right.
And so whether it's, running a mile versus running a marathon, you can really kind of see how that person's wired and how they're pushing themselves. Are they setting big goals? Are they achieving those? Are they doing what it takes to be successful?
Yeah, I want to talk about that too, because part of me, I have these audacious goals, and I'm like, that's in college we'd be like, it'd be like winter conditioning, and we'd be lifting, and you're like, your goal for your max is like this obscene number that you don't think you're going to hit, and then you end up hitting it, right? And so goals are always attainable, like realistic goals. The other thing I think sports teaches you is a couple different things. One, I think probably the biggest one, and this is, I remember my coach, we'd be at Liberty, would be winter conditioning outside at like 5 a.m. in the dead of winter. It would be like 0 degrees or like even colder. Maybe not. I mean, I'm exaggerating. It was very cold, right? So we'd be out there, and he'd be in his like hoodie and jacket, and he'd be like, guys, you guys got to compete, because competition or adversity breeds cowards or builds character. And I just remember that and that's true. I mean, we're a sales organization. We're competing, right? And you face adversity, right? You're not going to get this deal. This deal's going to fall through, or someone's going to out pitch you in this pitch you have. And it's really how you respond to that, right? How you celebrate the wins, and it's really also learning how to lose, right? I mean, and building relationships, and all that stuff is just all like just sports.
Well, we all tend to be wired the same way for whatever reason as humans. And one of the things that I think a lot of us have in common is we tend to overestimate what we can accomplish in a short amount of time and completely underestimate what we can accomplish over a long period of time. Right. So like that weightlifting, goal that you've set for the end of the summer, over time, if you just do the reps, right, every single day, the relentless progress, moving yourself forward, you're going to achieve a lot more than you can even comprehend in the moment over time.
Absolutely.
But it takes time. It takes those reps. It's the Mamba mentality that,
love it.
Right, that is talked about. I just absolutely love hearing those types of stories. It's very powerful.
I mean, persistence is what we're talking about, right? It's not kind of, I mean, I remember as a broker, there was, again, sales, and there was, I remember our managing director would always be like, Greg Bruges at the time, he'd always say, make sure you follow up. And I was like, yeah, like I'm going to make all these other calls. And I remember more than once where I was working on a deal, I didn't follow up, and then I seen the paper that this person moved to this person. It was like this, nice deal, and I just all I had to do was follow up. And the Mamba mentality is another one in that, the journey is the destination, right? I mean, I think a lot of times we lose track of that because we're just trying to get to this one thing, but like the things you learn, the things you experience, and the growth you achieve just in that journey is so much better for you than the end goal, right? And then it's the other big thing that, there's no lesson that failure can't teach, right? Failure teaches you so many more lessons than success.
Exactly.
And so, but that's so counterintuitive to like the average
and that's why we have this podcast, right? And if you want to get pumped up, like watch videos of Kobe Bryant talk, his Mamba mentality, his approach to the daily grind to be the best in the world. He talks about when he was in 8th grade, he went a whole season scoring like 2 points.
Right.
You know, by the time he was in high school, he was the best player in the state.
Mm-hmm.
It's just the relentless progress.
Yeah.
Absolutely love it.
So let's lean into this failure a little bit. So, Mamadou, I know this is some of the things that we want to laugh at and kind of make fun of ourselves a little bit, but we all stumble, right? We all make mistakes. So can you give us maybe an example of a time that you stumbled or a mistake and the lesson learned from that experience?
Well, I don't think I have a specific example, but I will say this. All my failures have actually led me to the right area, right? Like it's like, you know, whether it was recruiting where like, you know, I'm trying to recruit a specific person and I'm like just focused on that. That doesn't work out, and the team that you do recruit and end up coming is actually a better fit for you, for your team anyway, right? I find that at times I try to just force things, and really if you just let it like kind of work itself out, it ends up kind of working out, right? But I think that's all like, I mean, I'm a very spiritual, religious guy, so to me it's like, you know, there's all other reason why that happens, right? It's just faith in general, but you know, nothing like
no baby gate moments or anything.
I'll share the baby gate, but before that, I'll say Kelsey, forgive me. So, I mean, so you know, and this is a really big lesson learned from Forum 7 here. You know, Tim, this probably never happened to you, but where my wife tells me for 3-4 weeks, hey, you need to put these baby gates up because obviously we have a baby and he's going to fall down the steps. So I'm like, yeah, I'll get to it. 3-4 weeks go by, and my wife takes it upon herself to put the baby gates up, right? So, and she's not happy about it because she told me to do it and I should have done it, right? And I think she was pregnant at the time as well. So, don't let this be a reflection of me also. You know, I'm too far down the road. So,
Too late.
I was thinking you would maybe give like a leadership baby gate example. You're going to give the baby gate example. I love it. Example. Okay.
But I'll tie it back to leadership, right? And so she puts up the baby gate, and I get home and I'm like, oh, you put up the baby gates. But you put it in the wrong way. Like, it's actually supposed to So she like, I'm pretty sure she just like cried. I felt like really bad. So then I tell these guys, and they're like, you just did Babygate? And so they named it Babygate. But that is such a parallel to like, you know.
Like you had to have known the minute that it came out.
It was, as I was saying it was like slow motion. No! If it was a movie, I'd be standing outside myself, looking at myself in slow motion saying it. But hey, you know what? I guess in a leadership thing is like, you got to pick up the slack, right? At the end of the day, you're responsible for everything that happens. That whether someone does it right or wrong, it's you. You're the final kind of person responsible. And so,
and from Kelsey's point of view, you know, she tried to have you do it, and in the end, she had to do it herself.
She had to do it herself. Yeah, exactly. So, she's the leader
on her part.
She's the leader in that scenario, not me. But it's, you know, I think, but that also talks about servant leadership, right? Yeah. It's one to do things that other people aren't going to do, or nothing being beneath you, right? I mean, you know, whether it's something as simple as like putting dishes in the dishwasher in the kitchen, or right, or like maybe, you know, sitting in for someone who can't make a tour, or, you know, just small things, right? And I think that actually builds trust, it builds a relationship, and it further cements that camaraderie that you're really trying to build to create a culture.
Yeah, so we have in our values is praise, and the A in praise is accountability, and we just talked about this week with the team, and it's accountability first to ourselves, and I think most important to ourselves, because if we're accountable to ourselves, and other people don't necessarily have to hold us accountable, but then there is accountability to each other, and we talked about it, how that works in business and teams, but also in family, right? And how we hold ourselves accountable to our family, our wives, our kids, and all of that, and I think it's an important lesson.
So as you look forward now as your leadership journey, like what are some of the biggest challenges that you're facing currently as a leader, and how are you thinking about those challenges?
I'd say one ongoing challenge is, I guess, twofold. One, continue to get buy-in, right? I think when you have a sales organization and you have a lot of really just strong-willed salespeople, which makes a great salesperson, right? Sometimes it can be difficult to influence people to really see what the vision you see, right? Because I have a vision for the office and the market, and my job from day one has really been to convey that or articulate that image to everyone so they understand it, and so we're all rowing in the same direction, right? That's an evolution. I mean, it's you have good days, you have bad days, right? You have great policies that people see immediately, and you have other policies that people don't see, and they're kind of and then change is always hard, right? So that's an evolution, right? And I think that also speaks to culture, right? I'm always thinking about culture, and this is another thing that I learned from the boil the ocean kind of scenario, where it's like that doesn't happen overnight. In fact, you don't want it to happen overnight, right? Because then it's artificial, right? This is kind of a long, iterative, ever-changing process where, you know, if it's genuine, it's got to be organic, right? Where you can't like force it. Hey guys, we're all gonna get together, like force people to like we're all gonna be collaborative. No, it's just people buying in of their own free will and really embracing the vision, the culture, and then your leadership as well, right? I mean, our CEO says to be a leader, you have to have people that want to be led, right? It's like the first rule of leadership. So you really have to create that, and you have to foster that environment.
How do you sense that, right? Because it's not like, I mean, maybe you can survey it a little bit. Like, how do you, because you can just feel it, right?
Absolutely.
Like, you know, when the culture's there, there's something about it. Are there ways that you can talk to people or realize that that evolution is starting to happen and that culture is starting to build?
I think that one of the probably biggest ways to do that is when you're not articulating it, but other people within the organization are articulating it for you, right?
Yeah.
I mean, when it gets to the point where it's like, you know, people are holding each other accountable, for instance, if that's one of the, you know, then it's like, okay, the culture is starting to work, right? Or the culture is starting to form organically, right? And you have leaders in the office. You have from both a culture perspective and a production perspective, you have people that are both, right? Great producers, great cultural leaders. And yeah, I think that once you start to see that, you can really like ignite that fire, and hopefully it continues to catch.
Well, the best players don't win championships, the best teams do, right? So that culture, and great cultures are self-propelling. So I love what you just said there, right? When the team is holding itself accountable, it's not being held accountable from the leader, but it's self-propelling. That's the hallmark of a great culture, right? And so everything that you can do to drive that is going to drive to your success.
I love using the analogy. It's not the vertical accountability, right?
Yes.
When you start, I mean, that's the old school, let's just say, mentality of vertical accountability. But when you can start to see horizontal and even diagonal accountability, and you see that from your members of your team like that, that's really when you know that
it's working.
You know, it's working. Yeah, definitely.
So any moments along that journey around building that accountability, building that trust that you've slipped up or your team slipped up that set you back, and how did you overcome that?
Yeah, there's always going to be setbacks, right? I mean, no one's perfect, and leadership is hard. I think that's another thing I appreciated is true leadership, though. We're talking about servant leadership, which is what leadership is supposed to be, right? It's difficult, right? Because it's while the right thing to do is, you know, really just help someone help themselves, kind of in a not like a very forced way. Sometimes I'm like, hey man, like just do this, right? Like, it's like just do it, you know. And you know that too much of that is not good for a culture, not good for a leadership. It turns into like an ego thing, right? And so to be quite like, I've had some of those where it's like, you know, maybe that wasn't servant leadership, that was and you know, I try to substantiate everything we're doing, but I think to answer your question, Tim, it's like the best way to overcome that is just try again. Yeah. You know, just tomorrow's a new day, and you know, I'm not afraid to admit when I'm wrong. Could I do more of it? Probably, but you know, if I mess up, I'm going to let you know, and I'm going to apologize, and we're going to fix it. And so that's, I think, the best way to rectify that. But again, you know, I've said this word 10 times during this, but it's an evolution, right? I mean, it's ever growing. I'm growing as a leader on a daily basis, right? I'm still new in this journey, and digesting all the podcasts and books and just
Especially
this one.
Yeah.
But just from all the leaders that I have access to at CBRE and then all over, right? So ever changing, I'm ever growing, and it's an iterative process. So
how much are you willing to make to let people fail? If you know that it's a mistake.
Yeah, I think if it's detrimental to the, to the organization, probably gonna put a foot down. But that failure is the best coach and teacher,
right?
Man.
So it's kind of it's a challenge, right? Because it's like a car wreck in slow motion, right?
Yeah.
This is going to happen.
Yep.
How much are you willing to let it happen so that there can be a lesson learned? Is a challenge, right?
It is a challenge because I think one of the best measures of someone's potential is aptitude, right? Someone that can learn quickly, someone that can pick things up, and sometimes it's through failure, right? I mean, so it's when you're a young broker. I remember as a young broker, I'd like uncover these opportunities, and the senior brokers would be like, "Don't waste your time on that. That's not gonna that's a waste of your time. Don't do it." And I'm like, "No way! Like I'm gonna do." And then you find out in the end, like, okay, this is why he or she said it was a waste of time, because they've been here, they've done that, they know the client, they know the industry, it doesn't make money, et cetera, et cetera. But so after that, I knew not to chase those kind of clients again. So
that's wonderful. So if you look at your leadership journey, right, and how far you've come as well as everything that you've learned, if you could pass one piece of knowledge back to an earlier version of yourself, if you went back to that law student or early in your career and just said, the one thing I need you to know and focus on, what would that be?
Man, I would say relationships. I think relationships for me have really led me to everywhere I'm at. I mean, it's led me to careers. It's led me to, opportunities. I think when you're young, you don't really appreciate what, a relationship is and how like long-term things can be, right? When you're 20, whatever, right? You're like, okay, I'll never talk to this person again, or I'll never do this again. Doing the right thing,
something else, right?
Exactly,
Money or
exactly.
whatever it is.
It's always, but I feel like it's just a rule of life. Treat people well and treat people the way you want to be treated. A character is not how you treat people out in the open. It's kind of what you do, kind of behind the scenes, right? And so, I think that in business, especially, I mean, handling situations the right way in the mindset of trying to maintain a relationship or build a relationship, you never know where that'll take you, right? Whether, again, jobs, opportunities, or just relationships, right? I mean, so I would say if I were to talk to young me, build as many relationships as you can and just continue to treat people the right way.
I love it.
I forget if it's
pick your circle wisely.
Pick your circle wisely. I still got to work on that because Josh is in my circle, and now you are. So
it's going downhill quick.
Going downhill fast, yeah.
Well, that's awesome. So any last parting thoughts or moments that you would like to share with our listeners?
What'd you say?
Words of wisdom.
Words of wisdom. Yeah. You're going to have so many can't make this shit up moments in your career that sometimes are funny at the moment, sometimes are funny in hindsight, but they're always a learning experience. And I don't always look forward to having them, but I always look forward to the lessons learned afterwards. So
that's awesome.
Absolutely.
Well said. And so thank you. Thank you so much for sharing your journey with us and the moments that you would like to do over, like put those baby gates up a little quicker. I'm sure there's one on the list here.
Absolutely.
That was put on perfectly.
It was perfect. Still perfect.
They're still there today.
Did not touch them.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks for joining us, Mamadou.
Absolutely.
It's been
My
a pleasure.
This is great, guys. Thank you for having me.
Awesome. Thank you. And thank you all for listening to this episode of You Can't Make This Shit Up. I hope that you enjoyed the stories, that you've taken some lessons out of this, and please come back, join us for our next episode. We're looking forward to having you there then. So thank you very much.